Hello and welcome to this week's episode of
Advice from Your Besties.
Yes, that.
Woo. And we got some really good questions this week off of Instagram. And
tell me what they are. I never look.
Okay.
I like a good surprise.
You do like a good surprise.
I love surprises.
Well, let me just, I think that's for my husband, actually. Okay, so where's the one that I like? Okay. This is a good question. What are the biggest red flags for a girl? And I mean, I think we're just talking in relationships, right? For any kind of relationship.
I read that as a relationship question.
Yeah, same.
How much time do we have?
Chelsea has a lot of red flags.
Not in my life that I would like to discuss.
No.
Yeah, take that back. I have a lot of red flags.
Oh, no. I guess you have a lot of things to say about red flags. And you are familiar with a lot of red flags and how to.
Okay. What we're not talking about is my book that's coming out in the first of the year. It's called Color the Red Flags.
Yep.
That talks about all these things. No, this was not a plant. This actually was a real live anonymous question. So yes, I am a big fan of red flags. No, in all seriousness, there's so many to choose from.
Are there different levels of red flags? Is there like a little baby red flag? And then is there like whoosh?
Yeah. And okay, so the book I'm publishing is a coloring book, and it kind of walks you through the steps of red flags. So from its infancy all the way to very mature ones that it might be best to like hightail it out of there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so where should I start?
I guess, what is a common red flag that we often like to choose to ignore?
I think people show us who they really are in the beginning, and then we make excuses or we allow, it's almost like people are telling us who they are. Mm-hmm. And somehow we're interpreting something different. What did we mention? Who was putting outfits on? Empower Her?
Oh, Lindsay.
Lindsay at Powerhouse. And she was saying in an episode that like put on people they don't care what the person's doing necessarily. They just want the person to fit to them. Okay. Agree? Yeah. Like they have fallen in love with this romantic notion. Like let me just say, like the person that I first met, I was dating, and he talked about cheating on his wife.
You're like, ooh, okay. But
no, you know what? The young person that I was then didn't recognize that would be my future. Mm-hmm. So if someone is, I think that what they're wanting is this question, this person asks the question, you want bullets. Okay. If they're on their phone a lot, probably a red flag. Like specifically when you're together and you're not making eye contact, like, why can't you put that down?
Yeah. Or maybe if they're being really shady about their phone, it's like, no, don't look at that.
Yeah. What's that? What's all that all about? Love bombing is a red flag. Like if they're coming on too hard, too fast. I just met you yesterday and now you've liked everything and you've commented on everything. It's like, yo, that's a bit much. Like if you are going over to their house, their actions are primarily what's up. So if you go over to a person's house and they're like, just bring the buzzer. And if you throw a curveball and you're like, hey, will you come down and meet me? And they say no. That's a red flag.
Walk away.
Just be mindful that like they're not willing to go out of their comfort zone to do anything for you. And then you actually have to remember to be yourself even more when you're with someone, because it's like you will get caught up and you will like that person and you will enjoy them. And so then you'll think like, for example, I had this friend, really liked him. But he would like casually say he didn't like dogs. And I'm like, yes, you do. No, you don't. And I was like, in what universe am I friends with a person that doesn't like dogs?
I know.
Well, I'm no longer friends with that person. And I should have cut that off early on because I always said I would never be friends with a person that has like dogs. What are other red flags? All of a sudden I can't think of any.
I would say like in that friendship that I ended.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red flags that I was ignoring.
Yeah.
Like everything is on their terms and we can hang out, but it has to be on this day at this time. And this is when we're going. And you have to be ready like right now. Kind of waiting, just waiting. Like, are we doing something or are we not doing something? Oh, we're doing something. Okay. Yeah. I'll be there right now because that's my only chance.
Yeah, I don't like that feeling.
You know, like that feeling
where you don't have a say, an equal say. If you're being like silenced somehow.
Yeah. And just to double down on your point, if you can't really be yourself, or if being yourself is not appreciated, or they're making you feel bad about you being yourself, that's a big red flag. And I definitely tolerated that for way too long.
Right. If I'm in a relationship, if I bring friend relationships with me to a new relationship, and this new person's like, well, I'm not feeling comfortable that you're friends with this person, and like you're hiking in the woods alone with this person, and it's like, yo, you are new to this scene, like you don't get to dictate. But oftentimes a lot of people will be like, oh, and then they start like cutting these people out because you somehow think that the like everything, the moon and sets and sun rises with this individual, when really if it's in a healthy relationship, they won't ask you to give up those things.
Yeah.
They should never be asking you to give up anything. If anything, they should be asking to find a way to like insert themselves into your life.
I think if there's a lack of trust, then that's what they do.
Well, if there's a lack of trust, it's because they have a lack within themselves, and then they're projecting it onto you. If you feel like you have to explain, where are you often? Like, what were you doing? What else? Like, if you can't be yourself, like I laugh really loud a lot of times, and if people are like, oh, that's loud, and you're like, well, then get the fuck out of here.
Well, then stand over there while I laugh and then come back.
Well, then leave, because I don't want you to come back, because then you don't get to enjoy this, because this is a lot of fun. Let's see. Someone that doesn't diminish like your, like, so what if you have different interests and you're like coming back and they're like, no. Like, you're going to be that now? That's not great, because I already have enough self-doubt. I don't need you tackling that shit on. Let's just see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to no one has to be exactly the same. I think it's good to have different interests. Sorry, this is a limb. Okay.
This doesn't apply to everybody, but this is my personal belief. If we're talking about dudes, if they didn't play sports in high school.
Oh, interesting.
That is a personal theory.
That's a personal red flag.
And sometimes not going to college. I know this is risky. I know people are going to hate me for this, but these are personal things that I have come to experience with the relationships that I know, that if they haven't done those things, it just molds a different person that doesn't align with my values. Okay. Sports usually means they know how to get along with someone, and they know how to like interact and like give and take. And then without that, I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's very important if I were to be looking for a new mate.
Yeah. I think also an equal energy exchange is really important. Yeah.
Right. If they're like, what else? Like, I was kind of naming off red flags, but it was this gal who didn't realize, I know this sounds ridiculous, but she didn't realize that she was in an affair with this guy. And it does happen easily, right? Because these people who are masterminds, and he doesn't look like he's like, but she was like, yeah, he's going to leave his wife. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. Does she know about that? She's like, no, he hasn't told her. I was like, okay, so he's leaving his wife and she doesn't actually know it. I was like, where is he sleeping? Well, they live in the same house. I was like, And like, how often do you see him? Does he actually spend the night? She's like, no. I was like, have you actually met any of his friends? Well, no. They have a mutual like social group. And I was like, and the wife is in it. And I was like, well, are you allowed to like interface with him in front of her? And she's like, no. I was like, okay.
Okay. But if I'm alone, it almost was probably too good to be true. Like, this is amazing. And
that's
like
the love
trips
bombing.
and like all the things.
Yeah, okay. That's the love bombing. I could give you, if I knew the specifics, I can tell you exactly. Unfortunately, I am well versed in, yes, I do have a lot of, not personally red flags.
No, you've experienced.
I have experienced more than I feel like the average person should, but it is my duty to share with others if you can possibly avoid some of these and circumnavigate all the red flags. And I don't know why it seems like there are more red flags coming up. I don't know why people it's just my perception, but it seems like people are becoming shadier. Like, why are they doing so much harm to others? And somebody might say, oh, no. But I do feel like it's a little nefarious out there, and people are just like, always, it feels sometimes deceitful. Or like we're always just trying to like squash someone else, and like I don't know. Maybe that's just my perception. What do you think?
I blame it on the internet.
Of course.
Yeah. I think it's
just bad parenting.
Yeah, bad parenting. I think we're just more aware of all the ways that you can hurt someone and how there's more creative ways to do it.
It's like romantic trolling.
Yeah, and how it's just like more accessible to be a terrible person, I think. And there's more ways to do it. There's more ways to rally people behind you. There's more people to like witness it and hear about it. There's just like it's easier to spread the message of people being nefarious.
Uh-huh. I'm trying to think what other red flags there are. I think that's just when they're also trying to talk you out of your interests. Mm. Like if I had a new person come into my life and be like, how about we do something? Like, why don't we go away Tuesday through Wednesday? And be like, Wednesday is my podcasting. He's like, but we're going to Bali. And I'd be like, okay. And you could see how it slowly starts chipping it away. Now you have to be a very strong, committed person to be like, nope, nothing comes between me and my podcasting. Take your trip in Bali and no thanks. Right?
Yeah.
And that's not easy for the average person. That's not easy for anyone to do.
No.
But that's where your will is being tested. And then those that like peel off early, that usually means that they are on to the fact that you don't tolerate that kind of stuff. That you are solid in your footing and you know who you are and what you want out of a relationship. It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy at all.
There's a fun game to play called What Am I Tolerating?
Oh. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was a horrible game. Horrible.
It's a horrible game.
We were at this retreat and what were we, snowshoeing?
We were snowshoeing.
Were we?
No, we were snow walking because we were out of snowshoes. Yeah. And I was like, I learned this fun new game called What Are You Tolerating? And you go through every single aspect of your life and probably double down on relationships about the things you're tolerating. And I think once you say it out loud.
Oh, it's very powerful.
It's very powerful, or even writing it down if you don't feel comfortable.
No, you should say it out loud.
You should say it out loud.
Because then you're hearing it and you're like, that sounds awful.
Yeah. So I think that's a great way to identify if there's any red flags showing up for you.
There's so many more. I wish you could give me a specific and I could be like, well, this, and this.
Well, maybe in your book we can...
Oh yeah, the book is so cute, you guys. Oh my god, you're gonna love it. It's not your average like page turner, but it's interactive, and it's done in a cute way so that like, because this is a very heavy topic. If you've been burned by a red flag before, it leaves a mark. So really, this is more of a telltale, and like maybe share this with your girlfriends or your daughters or your college age people, and it's not limited to female relationships, right? This is just anybody who's been experienced to people who don't have their best intentions. But it's like, I'd like to educate those so they can learn it before it happens to them, that this particular action is not normal or will not lead to a positive outcome. So look for it.
All right. That's all the advice we have for you today. So take some inventory. See what you're tolerating.
And text me.
And send us a DM or text Chelsea if you have specific questions and she can guide you.
You won't necessarily like the way I guide you, but it's like you just got to beat a little bit of tough love, because if we don't do it together with people you trust, that person who might not have your best interests, they're going to drive your boat, and it's not going to, maybe it doesn't end well.
All right. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Disclaimer. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The stories and statements expressed herein are experiences and opinions. They may not represent the views of the production studio or the hosts. If you disagree with our content, that's okay. No podcast is perfect for everyone.